No worries.
I think I've forgotten how to do that at this point.
I know.
Yeah, we just got done with our bath time. We do 2 baths a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, because she loves them so much. So
Yeah,
pretty stinking cute these days. She likes to kick around, and she has it's a little, what do they call them? Loofahs. It's got a kitty cat, the pink kitty cat. So we call it her bath cat. And every time she's in the tub, she like grabs it. She's like, yes, I'll say
that's great.
You want to come and make a brief appearance?
There we go. Cameo.
Oh, look at that.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
That's good stuff.
That is.
Done playing with the bath cat.
No. Okay. Good night, sweetie. Enjoy your bottle.
I love it. We're about to get my sister-in-law's due here in a few weeks, and I have a feeling we're gonna have to relearn how to babysit here before too much longer.
Yeah. Luckily, my mother-in-law's been watching her during the workday. So they live in UA, and my mother-in-law is a saint. She drives over here, picks her up, and drops her off in the evenings.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's a win.
It's pretty awesome. We and certainly we appreciate it too. She just retired about a year ago from Ohio State, and where she was a nurse in the critical care unit for 35 years. And this has been despite how she's been there 35 years, she's what, 63? So she's not even eligible for a lot of things yet. So she's so young, but she loves it because she's able to watch Zoe and spend time with her now. And
it's awesome.
It's almost like we got to peel her away to get her into daycare after the pandemic's over with.
That's awesome. Hey, Libby, you're
yes,
on mute,
I got it now.
Yeah.
She's appreciating not having to deal with the pandemic also.
Yeah, right? That timing must have been like right on the money, huh? We're close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is wild. Well, I know Drew said he couldn't make it today. Get any responses from anybody else that they couldn't make it, but I suppose we can dive in. We got Libby a nice late run after the commission meeting to almost 1,000 responses.
Wonderful.
Which is great. So I think it's double where we were a month ago. I think some of the other, there's Amanda. I think some of the social media certainly helped, but I think there was a newspaper article in This Week. I don't know if I ever read that. I talked to the reporter, but I'm not sure I ever read the story. This Week used to be a little easier hey, there's BJ. A little easier to come by. And now I only get it if I pop into Wylands and just grab a copy. So.
Yeah, same.
Well, most of the time it's not worth the paper it's printed on because it's stuff that's already been printed in the Dispatch.
Yeah.
Has very little that's just Clintonville.
Right.
It's very disappointing. That's why Spotlight is so important at this point.
Actually, it doesn't look like he published this story until the 21st. I'm just looking at it now.
Oh.
Well, I had the survey open until this afternoon. So there was we eclipsed 1,000 responses. We hit 1,009.
Nice.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I think that I was in a meeting today. I'm on a task force for MORPC active transportation, and they had a presentation on the Northwest Corridor, and I think they got like 750. So we got a pretty active neighborhood, I tell you.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't know that already.
Yeah, well, I was wondering how many of the 750 MORPC got were from Clintonville.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
You know, tell Marcy I'm open to consulting gigs.
There he goes. Yeah, yeah. Great. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. I apologize for my delay. I have my
Oh, no
son
worries.
trying to get him set up with a movie. So
No
we're having
worries.
technical difficulties.
All good. Kari, good to see you too. I guess this is Happy New Year, huh? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're on vacation right now, so
Well, I
All
wondered
right.
about that light behind you.
yeah.
Are you in,
We're on
are
a
you in
patio.
Florida?
We're
We're in
on here.
Fort Myers Beach right now.
Okay, because this is the
Nice.
week that we were in
Nice.
Florida last year, and we were on opposite
Oh.
sides of the state.
Right,
Yeah,
that's right.
my husband and I were thinking longingly. I've been
Yeah.
checking
Yeah.
out the webcam down there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a little harder to stay safe down here. If nobody, not many people are very mask compliant around here.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
It's not
It's
terrible, but it's
Not compliant like in public places.
yeah, like the seating isn't nearly as spread out, and just people just not wanting to wear masks and just not doing that, or invading your personal space. It's just, yeah, it's not like Ohio.
Interesting.
I was in North Carolina visiting my family this summer, and we went into South Carolina to have dinner, and we went to this one place. I think we were the only people that walked in with a mask on.
Yeah.
And like literally looking around, I was like, you have no idea anything was going on. Like, no, I was visibly uncomfortable. I mean, we were
Yeah.
outside, so it felt like a little bit better. I'm like even the wait staff. I was like, this is just
Yeah, creepy.
this is
No
such
thanks.
dangerous.
These are the things I have nightmares about now. I have mask dreams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So,
Well, I'm sure y'all probably watch like series, like TV shows or movies. You're like, oh, they are so close, and they're like, should they have a mask on?
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they brought back sports. My son played a basketball game last night, and no spectators allowed, so it was streamed on Facebook. And he wore a mask the whole game. He
Good for
played in
him.
the mask. Yeah, and I think a
Wow.
lot of his teammates did too. But
It's incredible.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Hmm.
It's definitely some weird television to watch. The only good part of it was no one he didn't see me giving exasperated looks toward him when he did something that wasn't
Right.
quite right. So I was in the safety of my own living room.
You could be
Max them
that.
out! Max them out!
Yeah, exactly. Didn't transfer any negativity unwittingly toward the court. So that was good. In all honesty, though, he was able to watch it after the fact as well, which was good because he instantly sort of watched it and saw what happened when he did make a mistake and learned from it a lot. So
Okay.
it's better attitude than I would have had at that age. I'll tell you that. So,
Good for him. That's awesome. So Susan and I actually had COVID.
oh, no kidding.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yikes.
So we spent Christmas and New Year's quarantined at home.
oh shoot.
Wow.
Wow.
Actually, don't have no idea where we got it. My office is as safe as probably safer than our house.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but we do high steps in the grocery store now because we're invincible. Feel like it, but it is interesting when you have the antibodies kind of floating around your body how different you feel.
Hmm.
Yeah, and we were both had very, very slight symptoms. We were both
Oh,
very,
I'm glad to hear that.
very
That's good.
fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
what sort of clued you in that you thought you might have it?
It was a weekday. Susan just started feeling a little rough around the edges and scratchy throat. Neither of us had a fever.
Yeah.
Headache, fatigue, really. She completely lost her sense of taste and smell and actually is just getting it back now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then she tested positive, and then I just had a small scratchy throat. Also tested positive. I had even slighter symptoms than her. Neither of us ever had a
Mhm.
fever.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think back to like a day and a half maybe that I had symptoms. That's it.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
we are very fortunate. And
Yeah,
so,
that's wild.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing all right. It's good.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. We're happy that, you know, we look back now, we're like, oh man, I'm glad we're kind of through it. And
It's amazing how different it impacts people.
Mhm.
My brother had it and was in the hospital for a week.
oh yeah.
Didn't get
Oh.
oxygen, and then his wife had it, and she just lost taste and smell. So he's fine. He's out of the hospital now, but like
No,
it
that's
was.
good.
I mean, he went into the hospital the 1 year anniversary of the first case in the U.S. I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, we made it this close.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. My
Oh.
parents finally got vaccinated, and I work for Ohio Health as a fitness instructor, so I actually got the vaccine as well.
Oh, good for you.
I know. So I'm like, well, maybe we can gather in like a month.
Yes.
Because they're down in the Carolinas, and we, didn't see them for the holidays. So I was like, well, we'll all be, and then in theory, a little bit more protected.
Yeah.
So I've been telling people I'm 50% protected now because I still have to get the second shots.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Oh, it's crazy. Really great. If I lost my sense of taste, cooking's all I got right now as an outlet. I'd be really,
Oh,
I'd be
it was
really
hard.
bad.
yeah.
I'd
Somebody
be
who
mad.
runs a bakery, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
Terrible.
can't imagine. So did she eat? Like, was she hungry?
Oh yeah. I mean,
I guess
oh
I
yeah. I
eating,
mean,
like, a whole
it
bunch
didn't
of
affect
vegetable
appetite.
smoothies and all the good, go on like a cleanse or something.
Oh man. All right, well let's jump in, Zach. Let's
Yeah.
see what we've got, and we talk a little about next steps. But curious with double the responses if statistically.
Yeah. Let me
Around a little bit.
share my screen here.
Yeah.
Hold on here. Download.
So Kari, I have to tell you, if you're in Fort Myers, Susan's mom and dad snowbird down there, or they have in the past, and had they always go to Matlacha. And I don't know if you've heard of Matlacha, but it is the little strip of land that connects to Pine Island.
Yes.
This small little
I've heard
artist
of it.
colony.
I've been out there.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool little place. So if you get a chance, head down there. It's a good half day.
Thanks for
All
telling me
right.
something.
Can you guys? Oh,
Oh, there's there.
I know. Here we go. Let's do this again. Sure. All right. Can you see my
There we
screen
go.
now? Perfect.
Yep.
All right. So, taking a look at the survey again, we had 1,009 complete. So you're going to see some of these ends here, down here at the bottom, are going to be a little bit higher. So there was about, I would say, an 18% abandonment rate, which is pretty typical when you see surveys like this. So what an abandonment rate is basically people that start the survey but then don't finish the survey. So, that aside, like I said earlier, we had right around 1,009 completes, which I thought was a really good amount of people to take it, and will certainly allow us to do a little bit more with this information as we get through. So just kind of revisiting that question number one, we can see that 18% of the residents of the Clintonville area have lived here between 5 and 9 years, which is the largest category by count. But generally speaking, when you look at kind of the overall picture, I would say that, that 5 to, kind of that 39-year mark, that's where most of the people here in the neighborhood are, pretty wide gamut, and we can begin doing some imputation and things like that and modeling to maybe even get people's numbers even closer if we wanted to. But the idea here is that, I think we're talking to a pretty good resident of the neighborhood who's been here long enough to see things and has some opinions that they want to share. I did find it interesting that the less than 1 year count was there's 20 more of them than there was of the 1 year, which I thought was interesting. So just a little bar chart down here to visually represent that. In the more final presentation, I will prepare this to have a little bit more information, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like here in a minute.
Not quite a bell curve, but
Right. Not quite a bell curve, but we are the good news is we aren't applying any Z scores against it or standard deviations or anything like that. So question 2 is, do you currently rent or own where you live? The reason we wanted to ask this question is because when we compare it against U.S. Census data, which crossing fingers should be coming out at kind of the level where we could compare this to fairly soon. We want to make sure that we're not too far off. But based on kind of, I think our knowledge of the neighborhood, 91% owner, single family detached seems to feel right. With kind of about a 7%, 8% renter base, which makes sense. So again, I think it's interesting that 91% that ownership number. So we are talking to people that do have a direct vested interest in the community as well. And again, just another little bar chart to show that. Q5 is just the basically, after you took the survey, or after you went through the exercise, is what you see here correct, yes or no? So this is going to be 100%, which is what we would expect. Question number 6, how do you identify? We saw a sample that was 2/3 female, 1/3 male, with a few answering in other categories. So majority female, which again, this isn't far off, I think, kind of what our feel of the neighborhood is. I think one of the things that we know is that women tend to outnumber men, 60% to 40% in areas, are increasingly so, especially as women age and men die. Not to be morbid, but this isn't surprising, and I think this is within perfectly good reason. I think one of the things that will be interesting too is to kind of look at the splits, and once we get to the segments, I'll kind of go through those. But looking at the splits of gender within those, one of the things that I've seen in surveys in the past that I've done for communities is women will have a lot higher sensitivity towards street lighting and safety and walking, as opposed to men, which will be much more concerned about things like traffic, which I think will be interesting to kind of see how that plays out, if that does. But just some concepts about, or ideas around, maybe how we might look into that. Again, just a little bar chart there real quick, just so everyone can see. And then we asked what year you were born. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to aggregate these into generations, so that way we can see some generational bucketing. But generally speaking, what we're seeing is a pretty good diverse mix of folks throughout the neighborhood. 15s, lots of teens, lots of 20s among age categories, which is really good. To me, in this bar chart, may be a little hard to read, a really good, nice spread of ages throughout the neighborhood as well. So once we get the generations that I plug those in, I tend to rely on the Pew Research Center's generational breaks, as they tend to be kind of the most widely adopted. We'll apply those, and we'll have some more clear information here about kind of who answered the survey by generation. We asked if you were a student as a way to understand, if there are some students maybe going to Ohio State or other colleges in the community nearby. Very low count of residents that are students, 15%. And the majority of those, we asked follow up kind of what degree are you pursuing? 8 of those 11 are, pardon me, not 8, I can't do math. 12 of those are pursuing a bachelor's or a postgrad degree. So, one of the things is when I was doing a survey closer down in the university area, there was a significant, I would say probably about 1/3 of the folks that we surveyed were students living in that community that we, at the time we were surveying. So, but it is still interesting to pull this out because, when you ask somebody that's 18 years old, oh, what's your highest completed education? They're gonna be like, well, I'm a freshman in undergrad, so I'm gonna say some undergrad. And in reality, what we know is that some undergrad is really about people that went to undergraduate but don't have a degree or, stopped pursuing one. Which brings us to our next question, which is, what's your highest attained degree? I don't think, again, that this is surprising to anybody, but we have a lot of very smart people here in Clintonville, a lot of advanced degrees. So roughly 1/3 have a bachelor's degree, and almost almost half have some sort of postgraduate degree. So MBA, MD, JD, PhD. Some folks have graduate work done. Others have, associate's degrees or some undergraduate experience. And not many with kind of that less than high school. So again, I think kind of what we would expect. I think we know that in our community, there's a lot of folks that are working professionals. So seeing those high counts of bachelor's degrees and postgraduate degrees is not surprising at all. And again, just another little chart right here to kind of illustrate that. Household income ranges, what we'd expect here is that based on kind of the fact that education levels tend to be higher, people tend to be homeowners, you see longer tenure, that basically these income ranges would be, and counts within these buckets, as it were, would be slightly higher than what you would see, perhaps in the city of Columbus. And that kind of really bears out here. It kind of does form a nice little curve with kind of the biggest bucket being that 75 to 99, which in my day job, we see fairly regularly that's kind of where a lot of people believe they are. So just for reference, the annual median household income in the United States for 2020 was $65,000 roughly equivalent. So, just kind of giving you an idea that Clintonville here is above the median in terms of household income as well. So just some useful information to take a look at, big picture. And again, just to really make sure that we're getting a sample that's going to be representative of the community. And then lastly, would you like to receive the results of the survey emailed to you? A whopping 82% of people really said that they would really like the results emailed to them when they're done. So I plan on following through with that, through probably a large BCC and actually emailing out a final report. That final report will obviously go through our committee, and if that final report needs to be approved by the larger commission, we can certainly do that. Present that information and I think have a really good and robust conversation around maybe some of the infrastructure things that are going on in our community. And then that's it for the high level questions. So there's not many of them, but just want to kind of take a moment here to pause before we kind of get into the big findings of what we're really seeing.
Yeah, I think that's great. I don't know, if there's part of that's not the geolocated stuff, right? That's what that would be next.
Correct. Oops.
Okay.
That would have to be next. Yeah. So
yeah, got it.
The idea is that in the next phase, and we can talk more about this later, but we ask people to provide their cross street or an address if they were willing. And what I want to do is geocode those addresses and then actually look at, we call them utilities or appeal scores, but basically, how important certain things were to them, right? And we can actually begin to create some really interesting dynamic maps that will kind of help us maybe even identify areas where things like curbs or sidewalks or crosswalks or street or traffic calming are really desired. So it kind of, in a strange way, it kind of increases the usability of this data by manifold. Because once my experience says that once we start looking at this geographically, we're going to have a really clear picture of where we need to go, what we need to do, and have some new ideas too around maybe identifying, well, what are some problem areas, right, that have been identified by our residents that we may not have a good grip on. So there's always things that are going to be surprising, and I think that to me is going to be what the most surprising thing is. And I know Andrew has offered up some assistance from help for getting this geocoded, and I'll provide some consult to them about some, not to get too technical, but subtractive raster analysis in GIS that we can do to really kind of pull that information out. It sounds very technical, but it's not. So if there's no other questions, we'll dive kind of here into the meat and what the major findings were. So the max diff basically is, asking you to say which is your most favorite and your least favorite, or most important, least important of these items, right? And we give them 5 items. They go through 10 turns approximately and select those items. So what happens is as everybody goes through the exercise, we get basically these appeal or utilities. So all of these numbers are on a scale of 0 to 100, and each of these numbers will add up to 100. So basically, don't think of it as percents, because that's not really what it is, but as a proportion, right? So, 10. So, if there were 10 items on the list and you see an item with a 10, like you do number 2 and 4, that would be at the top of the list if there were only 10 items on the list, right? So kind of giving you a magnitude of importance rather than a percentage of people that want that thing, if that makes sense.
So last time we had repair sidewalks and add sidewalks as they were at the top. Is that still the case if I'm reading this right?
Yes, that's still the case right now. So repair and or level sidewalks is a 10.63, and an add or connect sidewalks is a 10.06. What I will say is that compared to last time, the magnitude of those came down a little bit. If I recall, last time one of those was 13, another one was 14, and now they kind of came back to earth a little bit. And the improving existing parks actually kind of climbed up the list. I think that was originally in the ballpark of like a 5, and now is closer to an 8.
Aesthetics of streetscape climbed maybe a little as well, or about the same.
Yeah, I think the aesthetic streetscapes one, I think that's probably around kind of the same point. Now, what's interesting is, and again, I have to spend some time kind of combing through the qualitative responses, and I have a few tools and methods to do that. I just haven't had time to yet. But when I was looking at people that said that was a high priority to them, a lot of them were actually talking about attracting various businesses such as restaurants, bars. A lot of them were kind of in the category with the street trees and planted medians as well. And I'll show you the 4 group results here as well. But this is the high level, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the high level, this is, if we were to assume that there is a perfectly average resident of Clintonville, this would be their priorities. But the reality is that, I think on the next page we'll show this, is there's not really a typically perfectly average person, right? Everybody has something different. Everybody has a different perspective. But one of the things that's really interesting is that through this exercise, we can actually do something called latent classing, where basically we can begin to group people that have very similar preferences, right? And begin understanding kind of what are the patterns of preferences that exist as a way to maybe, address, a subset of folks, concerns, right? And really understanding, is it just one concern that they have, or is it kind of a package of concerns, right? And I think that's kind of a really interesting view. So here on the 4 group, I ran a latent classing against it. And you can see that the breaks are a little uneven here, which I thought was interesting. There was one group in this column E over here, 31%. So roughly a third of Clintonville residents fell into this category, versus a fifth over here, kind of in this column D, versus a quarter respectively for columns B and C. So when we look at this, again, it's scaled similarly, but the results aren't directly comparable to what you see in the overall, I will note. But these results, these 4 columns are comparable in terms of those impacts. So what we can see basically is you can look at these numbers and you can see, gosh, one number that immediately jumps out to me is this number 17 right here, right? And this number 17 to me says slow and or calm traffic. So this group here, this 20% of people here, that is one of their highest priorities, and it's a higher priority than everything else in everybody else's group, right? So this group, if you were to meet this person out on the street, you would be able to tell them distinguish them pretty quickly, because they're saying, oh yeah, we need to slow and or calm traffic down. And then you can see down here in that similar column, they have a 12 down here, which has improved the aesthetic experience of streetscapes on major commercial corridors. So again, once we break down those qualitative responses, we'll be able to provide some more context perhaps around what these numbers mean in terms of what they were saying. But from my initial look, because I was really kind of curious, right, this group particularly kind of stood out. They were very much the group that was talking about, how do we bring more businesses? How do we improve the street life of the community, which I thought was interesting.
Do you think it'll turn out to live on quiet streets or busy streets?
That's a great question, Libby. I think one of the things is we'll be able to actually map out where these kind of clusters are, right? And understand kind of, is there a pattern to, maybe this group in column D all live in South Clintonville. Maybe the group in E lives in, up north of Morse Road. We don't know, right? But the idea is that we'll be able to maybe map this out and get a better picture of where these kind of concerns lie. That's a great question, though.
So what defines each group?
So what defines each groups is kind of, whenever you're looking at this, there's a lot of numbers here, right? And I'm going to help, contextualize that a little bit more and really do a deep dive into the analysis, and as opposed to just providing numbers, right? Providing some really in-depth kind of portraitures around what each of these groups are, kind of what they're looking for, and then using some of that geographic information, maybe describing if there's patterns about where they live, kind of the neighborhoods or communities in which they live. So that's kind of the ultimate goal, and that may take us a month or so to get at, but Andrew wanted me to share the early results, and what I would say in lieu of spending too much time on this is the early results are really promising. We saw really good, clear separation among these clusters. I ran basically simulating software to develop these solutions, and the borderline between a 3-group solution and a 4-group solution was pretty close, but upon looking at the 4-group solution, there's a little bit more consistency in terms of the respondents for that 4th group, or for the 4 groups, than there was for the 3 groups. So that's why I ultimately wound up going with the 4-group model. So again, this may be getting too wonkish and too technical. If you have any questions, I'm more than willing to sit down and explain my process to you. But suffice to say, I think once I get through the qualitative responses, we're going to get a much bigger picture of kind of what these things are and what, right, improving existing and or adding multi-use pathways is a really great, thing to talk about. But by what pathways are they talking about? Are they talking about in parks, right? What do those qualitative responses say that we asked them ahead of time? To how can we use that information to help inform, priorities in these areas?
So we can link up those early questions with the data.
Yep, exactly. So I know that this is a little overwhelming, but if anybody has, again, any questions, now's a great time to ask them, or I can go offline with someone and you can ask me too. I'm an open book when it comes to this. So.
Well, it makes me really appreciate your, what do I want to say, professionalism in this, because I have no idea what you're doing, really.
Yeah,
it looks like Zach, if I'm looking at this, I'm just looking at a screenshot I took of last month's meeting. Sort of the top 7 things are still the top 7 things. They just moved around a little bit. So, our responses where we had, 400 some odd responses and where we have a little over 1,000, didn't see a whole lot of change. It tells you the statistical, numbers were headed in a, at least a consensus direction, which I always find interesting. That more responses doesn't necessarily change the.
Yeah. And that's kind of the interesting with this method is that in reality, at the outset of this, you may remember me telling you that effectively we really only need 200 responses to be within a sampling margin of error of 5% because of the method and the way that the method works. So, once we kind of hit 400, we were in a pretty good spot. It doesn't work the same way that regular surveys do. You need less sample. or require less sample, I should say. But, now that we have 1,000, certainly the thing that is really nice about having 1,000 folks is that we can do kind of this latent classing exercise and really get a better picture of maybe what the constituent groups and for, which I think is especially powerful because, I think one of the challenges is whenever you're making a public policy decision, especially around, infrastructure spending, it's not necessarily that you want to please the most people or you want to, please the loudest people. You want to make sure that you're equitably addressing the concerns in the community and understanding what those constituent groups are and kind of what their concerns are and providing more color to that, I believe will help us as a committee, as a Clintonville Area Commission, and as a city, really kind of help understand it and build towards a more consistent and kind of, equitable infrastructure spending plan.
And I guess, the nice thing about having 1,009 responses too is we have more qualitative responses to link back to. We have more answers to, hey, where do you want improvements or where do you see the biggest problems in your neighborhood? We have more of those answers we can link back to this data. So that's cool. Well,
and one thing I will mention, I sent Andrew the whole data set for him to share with his folks and begin geocoding. But, it's funny how, topics of conversation that are, come up here. Lydia, I heard you mention Starbucks a few times, and there's lots of people talking about Starbucks in the survey. About how the traffic spills out in the street, right? So, one of the other things too is, how do we separate the topical from the from the real? And that's going to be another, I think, task in and of itself. But this committee and all of you guys can bring your expertise to bear in terms of your knowledge of the community, and we can sort that out, right? What I will say is that when I write this document and begin sharing it out, it is but one man's interpretation of what's going on, and I'm certainly open to having conversations and working through the data with everybody to really understand what's going on. I'm only, like I said, but one person, and I know what I know, and you guys know a heck of a lot more than I do because you guys have been doing this so much longer. But really looking forward to breaking it apart with you guys and going on this journey together.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm just looking through some of the open-ended responses, and I'd say most of this stuff is, I would say, serious answers, I guess, or substantive answers. There's some things we can do some things about. There's some things we can't do anything about. Certainly, that there's very few sort of, don't do any more improvements. Like there's one or two of those that I've sort of scanning through, but I think everybody is providing really substantial comments to this.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised to see substantive responses, but I was surprised to see some of the thought that people were really taking to answer that question specifically. It's like they were really providing a lot of care. And I think that the way that tactically the survey was set up, where that question was there ahead of this, was really useful, right? Because they were already in the mood of thinking about what is the community, what is it that I want in my community? And then when they get here, it's, yes, I like this. No, I don't like this. Yes, I like this. And then they get into the rhythm and they see their output at the end and they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. Mm-hmm. And, it's funny too, how I will say it kind of grew organically. I saw we have our own like little micro neighborhood Facebook page. I'm sure there's others out there, but someone was like, make sure you take this survey. This is our commissioners reaching out to us and telling us that they want our input. And I just kind of, I smiled a little bit because that's wonderful. I love that the community felt that they had a voice through this and really take this opportunity, not just to say, okay, well, thank you for the data. This is wonderful. Here's your list of infrastructure improvements. I think there's a really good opportunity to pull out quotes from people and say, this is what your neighbors were saying. This is what our community was saying. And, coming together with, not necessarily maybe a unified voice in terms of what this community can look like in the future, certainly a voice of, here are I think, what the community is looking for in terms of priorities. So with that, Andrew, I will yield back the screen.
Well, I'll share some of these. I've got some of the open-ended comments pulled up. It might be fun to scroll through a few with you guys. Obviously, this is not scientific at all, so we'll link these together, but you can start to see what some people are thinking. Let's see. Where to screen 2. So we've got some calls for transit here. It's pretty big. So that's actually this one that I've got highlighted. That's interesting because I think soon, if not this week, certainly next, the Northwest Corridor project the city and CODA are working on will have some public comment period open. So that's one survey that, or one project to sort of keep an eye on as we go through this, because I'm sure there'll be some survey results there that we can tap into. Speeding, sidewalk, we got the NIMBYs in here. Sidewalks on Milton, which is interesting in the context of the bike bridges stuff. Get rid of Starbucks at Torrance and High. There's that. I don't know if we can do that, you know. Get the bike path complete so traffic stays off Milton. There's that one. Cull the deer herd. That's a fun one. Yeah, there's some Starbucks stuff. Zach, you weren't wrong.
There's some topical stuff here regarding that.
Yeah, there's some Starbucks stuff. So yeah, a lot of stuff about sort of development. It looks like a couple of comments about that. So anyway, it'll be fun to sort of spin through this. We can, you know, certainly share and look at it on our own, but I think the value of this is going to be tying these sort of comments. And I guess the tough part about this, Zach, will be, and we can talk about this offline, but sort of theming these comments. You know, we're going to have to theme them and then attach them to
yes,
a geolocate. So that may take a second.
The good news is that, believe it or not, I have software that helps with that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I have a tool for anybody that's a qualitative researcher. You probably know about it, but it's called In Vivo, and it'll actually auto code things for me. So the robot does it.
Okay.
I will go in and actually, with my human mind and knowledge, try to code some of these things as well, and work with you to do that, Andrew.
Yeah, you have to teach it a little bit. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, this is really good stuff, and I love that. You know, I guess because we didn't ask for, some people gave us their addresses, which is great. That'll take a little bit of work to sort of put a dot at every single one of those. So anyway, we'll talk through what that means in terms of time and effort. But we've got some really good feedback here. So I guess as it relates them to the mobility plan, that's really our direct next step will be to make some progress on that so that we can start to see, what parts of the neighborhood we're saying stuff about sidewalks. I think we know what part of the neighborhood's probably talking about Starbucks. But start to put those things together. And we obviously have a top 10 list, but the top 10 list then connected with where people are in the neighborhood, I think would be really helpful. And I think this might be helpful to be able to get to the commission as we're starting to think about things like, the public feedback that folks gave last week on the connecting the bike path and bike bridges. Some of this information might be helpful to get a wider voice of 1,000 people out there, and get some feedback. So this is fun stuff. Fun stuff. Any other questions for Zach or any other thoughts you have?
I just want to echo Libby's statement of how impressive it is, because it kind of makes me go a little cross-eyed. And I've done like small survey things, but it's an art and a science. So this is great that we have this resource.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. It's cool.
You guys are getting the Cadillac treatment, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, not to worry, Libby. There's a rat comment. We got some rats. Wouldn't be
Where are there
Clintonville without.
rats? Where's their rat issue?
Rats has sort of been a periodic. Libby could probably tell you more
From my
periodic.
first meeting on the commission, we were declared rat infested in Clintonville, and it's, just kind of continues. I thought, what did I get myself into?
As the cat walks by, that's beautiful. Yeah, that was intentional, right?
Yeah. I have a cat sitting on my lap, so.
There you go.
And it's interesting the comments on Milton. I live on Milton. I'm at Como, Milton.
Yeah.
So when I tell people where I live, they're like, "Oh, I ride my bike by your house." I'm like, "I know."
Yes, everybody rules. Well, she's making herself quite useful on my sewing table. Oh.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Well, I guess the only other thing I thought would be I guess there's two other things worth following up on. Obviously the meeting on the bike bridges last week, I think, the stuff that we talked about in our meeting last month, I think were all the concerns that the community brought up, in terms of, I think, I don't know, I don't have access to the survey data there, but I guess the general tone of the meeting, people brought up the things that I think we're concerned about too, which is, if we're going to have a new crossing at North Broadway, it's got to be a good crossing. And I know there's more work to be done there. I think they heard that loud and clear, hopefully, because I think it was pretty clear in that meeting that, that crossing needs to have some work done on it for it to be safe. And unfortunately, in that meeting, there was nothing that was really said that, gave anybody an inkling of what could happen there. It was more just about, it's really more about alignment than it was about, what some of those tools might be. So my hope is that the next meeting, they come back with some of those tools, because I know they're tools. And I know that, it sounded like there was some progress maybe by the Franklin County engineer in that meeting to look at a sidewalk on the south side of the bridge. So it sounds like there's some things that, there's progress on a lot of those items that, that hopefully we can sort of bring back together at that meeting and show everyone that, hey, we listened. So I think there's not a whole lot of patience for that right now in the world. So hopefully
and I also, it sounded like that even if they're listening, all of the things won't happen at the same time.
Yeah.
I was pleased with the number of people they said were there. I don't think I've been on a Zoom meeting that's had that many.
I think 160, is that what they said?
I thought it was more like 190 something, but yes, 100 and something high.
Yeah. No, I thought that it was definitely very well attended. And it's, I don't think that was a meeting that was intended just for Clintonville. That's a regional, the regional trail. So I would imagine there was people on there they used the trail. It was really interesting to hear. And I've had this confirmed by other folks that I've talked with that, people do get to the trail gap and turn around and go back to wherever they started, whether that's on the north side or the south side. And I definitely have heard anecdotally people tell me exactly that since then. I don't know if I was surprised by that, but I guess I never really thought of it, mostly because I guess I know. So they get to if you're riding your bike. Yeah, exactly. If you're riding your bike northbound, you stop at Como Park and you go back because you don't know where the trail's going or you don't want to cross the street or whatever it is. And I guess that happens on the north side as well. And honestly, I use it because I'm trying to go to the things on the other side and I know what those are. And that's the way to get there. But honestly, my son won't ride. My son doesn't ride that way. When he rides his bike up to Whetstone, he rides a different way entirely because he doesn't like going through that intersection. I'm not sure he's riding it in a way that's any route that's any more or less safe than that, but that's his, whatever he's more comfortable with, that's what he does.
And it's funny, when I am out on my bike, often that is the exact part that I take because I go south through Walhalla and down to Clinton Como Park and then north up through Whetstone Park and depending on where I'm going. So I use that a lot and I usually use it in the middle of the day more than other people. And so I have not felt a big problem with the crossing there, but
yeah. So I guess that's still to come, and hopefully we'll see what they come back with. And it's a process. That was meeting one. I assume there'll be a couple more checkpoints as we go through that. The other thing that I think Commissioner White sent around today, but I'll send this in an email to you guys later. There is a zoning code
right.
assessment going on right now. It's not an update. It's an update. So it's the first step in the process. And full disclosure, I am on the consultant team that's working on this, not the lead consultant, but a consultant to provide local insight. It's our role on it. So there's a firm that just does zoning code rewrites across the country. They're leading the project. It's the first phase of this is trying to understand what's wrong with the zoning code before it's fixed. So stage one is tell us what's not working. And so that's the stage they're in right now. So I'll forward that email around, but it's a survey to get residents' input on.
So Andrew, our it hit our office today too, and there was an ask that well, as you can imagine, EMH, there's a lot of us that kind of review code, so we have been asked to comment on the usability side of it. So and perception.
I'm sure. More will come out about that. I think once all that information's processed. But I do think a lot of the things that people have, I don't know, Libby, a lot of the issues you all deal with on the commission. The fact there's all these variances that are required. Complicates the right thing happening. It does give you a voice in some ways too. That's important, and the key will be how does that voice continue when there's not a variance process. And right now, that's the only mechanism, in some ways, to say something about a project. It's a bit of a blunt instrument, right? But so I think that's going to be the challenge.
Isn't it like 50 years since the zoning code
has
been updated, or maybe slightly more? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you think about what Columbus was like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my God.
Just,
wow.
Socially, politically, development pattern, you name it, right? There's a lot of things that are probably embedded in that code. If you really read it, probably don't say some things we probably feel pretty good about today. So it needs to be updated. What's that?
That zoning code from the 80s isn't all that far removed from the zoning code that was used in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. It's certainly been updated over time, but it's been, it hasn't been thoroughly rewritten for that amount of time. So definitely let people know about it.
Just from a curiosity standpoint, because I don't work in the industry right now, are they looking at like a form-based code solution or just?
So the outcome of the first phase will be to recommend, changes, and then it'll be going about implementing that. So, rewriting a code takes a long time. So they want to make sure you identify the parts that are the biggest issues. It's possible there could be some form-based stuff that comes out of it. I think one of the biggest focuses on it right now as well is equity and affordability. So, I think we look at our city and growing population, and we don't have statistically enough houses or units being built right now, and the lack of units. I don't know if you guys saw that dispatch story the other day that was in the paper about affordability and just how quickly homes are being snapped up, how fast the market's turning over. When we put all these impediments in front of development, residential development, it makes the costs go up, or only a certain kind of home or residential product gets built because that's the one you can make the most money on, or it's worth taking the risk going through the public process, or however you want to, put it. So I don't know if you guys saw that.
I was going to ask, are they using the Kerwin Opportunity Index for that at all?
I know the city has, since I'm not the prime consultant, I know the city has sort of passed along all that information. It's something that they're
selfish interest, because I designed that too back in the day.
No, it's I've applied that to projects, especially when we started to look at park access. You put the overlay the opportunity index on top of where people have access to parks, and usually it turns out they don't in those areas too. So yeah, it's a big thing. The story I found funny in the dispatch about property values and home sales, I think this one guy said, "Oh, the story described it as the guy who was shopping for a home was looking in South Clintonville, and he wanted a first floor, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, and a first floor bedroom for $300,000." Like, first of all, forget the money. That house doesn't exist in South Clintonville. There's no South Clintonville house with a first floor bedroom, 2 baths. Get out of here.
And the 2 bath thing was like, really? There?
Is that happening? Come on. That's an unreasonable expectation. Who's a real estate agent? I want to talk to him.
It's crazy though. I have a lot of people, well, myself included, that have gone through the refinancing process and the appraisals we're getting back. I mean,
well,
insane.
My neighbor across the street at the corner of North Broadway and Indianola, their house has been appraised for like $550,000. It's slightly larger than my house, but it's at the corner of North Broadway and Indianola with Burger King behind it. And it just sold. Let's see. I want to say it was 330. Might have been 350, but I think it was 330. So the difference between what the appraisal is, that, the brand new appraisal through the auditor, and the selling price, and it needs a lot of work. The family, it's the McCarthy family. We're not big decorators. I believe the wallpaper in the dining room was there when they moved in 1958, because it used to belong to the Immaculate Conception Church, and I think it was the priest's house or the nun house or something. And the wallpaper looks like that, and we're just talking huge basement, but let me tell you, it's a 1930s basement. So, in fact, it has an outdoor entrance. So you just don't know about things like this. And yet then a house down the street did sell for $550. Right by Calumet. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, at least gives me confidence to invest in my kitchen renovation. So
yeah.
I feel like I'll get my money back. Been putting that off for a while. So.
And that second bathroom, Andrew.
Oh man, I've tried to figure out where to put that second bathroom. I have no idea.
I know.
You just put it in the kitchen like my previous owners did.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that.
I call it the Clintonville second bathroom, where it's like in the back of the kitchen.
Yes, where the back door used to be in the ice box. Yes. And
shower.
I'm not willing to give up my back door like that. Lots of them like that. We have a second bathroom in the basement, but it's definitely a basement bathroom.
Clintonville bathroom, yeah.
I remember looking when we were shopping around 7 years ago. There was the bathroom downstairs. It was like a toilet in the middle of like.
Yep.
No, ours is an actual laundry room with shower and everything, but it's the boys' bathroom.
The boys' bathroom. There you go. That's also key. Audience is key there.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Goodness. All right. Well, thank you guys a lot. I appreciate your time.
Zach.
Great job, Zach. I agree. Thank you.
So great.
A lot of stuff.
Not done yet.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
That's
Having just closed it this afternoon, I can't believe you have as much done as you do. So,
wow. What's the temperature, Kari?
Right now it's probably about 65.
Man, you're killing
It's breezy.
It's
that wonderful ocean breeze coming in, or Gulf breeze, excuse me.
I'm so envious. Envious.
Good for you, though, man.
It's a good break.
Have a safe trip.
Desperately needed. Thank you.
Jim, glad you're doing well, man. Do my best to.
We're gonna take a trip as well now that we can.
Good.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Highly recommend
And
it.
go give blood. Go donate blood.
Yes,
Yeah.
donate blood.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Already have.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
See ya.